What's up, everybody, and welcome to Naturalistics, a podcast dedicated to helping you become a better naturalist. My name is Matt, and here with me is Steph.
Hey Matt, how's it going?
Going pretty good. It's been a little while since we recorded.
It's been a bit, yeah. It's been a bit of time.
But definitely excited to share something with you guys today. We're going to be doing a tier list of naturalist habits.
Yeah, so we're going to be ranking naturalist habits based on their relative merits in terms of their value for time spent. So,
yeah,
given amount of time that you have is limited, and so how you spend your time is important. And we're going to try and maybe decide which of these are maybe the most valuable in that regard.
Nice. Yeah. Some stuff's more valuable than others. And you might find that you have a difference of opinion. Let us know what you think. So, alright, let's dive into this. Let's start with the Armchair Naturalist.
Okay, start with the Armchair Naturalist.
Alright, so this
is maligned.
Yes, the armchair. Calling someone an armchair naturalist is a little derogatory, maybe. But the thing is, so this is like specialized at-home study of a specific subject. So we all do that. We look through field guides. We read a book about a specific topic. It's certainly something that's an important part of being a naturalist.
Yeah, it's awesome because it can fuel your curiosity for the next time you go out, and it also gives you, if you're in one of those stages where you're really obsessed with something and you can only do it so many hours a day, this could be something that you do when you can't, be outside. Like if it's something that requires daylight, you can go inside and pull out a book and turn on a lamp, hopefully, and you can keep pursuing, you can keep feeding that fire. So yeah, I actually really like Armchair Naturalist.
For sure. It doesn't get a high tier only because it's not like a keystone habit like some of these other ones that we're going to get to where they feed all different kinds of habits as one habit. It's kind of like it's its own thing and it's very specialized and important, but
it's more supplementary where it doesn't stand alone like this on its own. Yeah. It just can't quite get up to A tier for me either.
So it's a good way to spend your time, but not maybe the best. And also if you're finding yourself there all the time, get outside.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's do a big one. The social naturalist. So this might not think of this as a habit, but to me it's S tier. Because spending time with other naturalists, even no matter what you're doing, is so critical. It's going to help you learn and get you inspired.
Yeah.
You're going to teach people things, possibly be taught things, be exposed to things you never thought of.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go S. I feel like I'm more A. I don't know. I like to spend a lot of time alone doing natural history, and I think I guess the danger is in that you maybe, yes, there's a lot of potential value there. It can be a huge catalyst and, kind of launch you. Like, I guess maybe I would include like mentorship in this category,
I would.
which is incredibly potent. But I also think that it can be like the social side of it can be distract. I don't know. I've been out with some folks and I find sometimes I learn less because it's more of a social thing than it is about natural history. So I don't know. I feel like A.
Yeah. I guess I hear you on that. So I guess I'll bump it down from your perspective that the drawbacks that I didn't think about.
Can't we go in between? Is that
no option for that?
All right. Very rigid. All right. Moving on.
Well, we might move, stuff might move around a little bit. So we'll see where it goes. All right. Let's do hunting and gathering. So this one's a tricky one, I think, only because I think the barrier to entry is high for hunting and gathering. I think it's just depending on where you live, depending on what you have access to, you're not going to go out there and just collect mushrooms and eat them or hunt a deer. Like it's a high skill level, usually a high knowledge level requirement.
So in other words, you need to invest quite a bit of time in order to get the payout. It sounds so commercial.
No.
In order to get the benefits as a naturalist.
Yeah. And I think that makes it more of a B tier. I mean, I think it has from a certain perspective, you can consider it S tier only because to know how to find certain kinds of animals, like a grouse or something, you have to know the right habitat. They're really camouflaged. You have to know, be very aware, be tuned into certain things.
Yeah. It creates a need for understanding and for knowledge. And I feel like that's, it's one of those ones where you have this like human connection because you're harvesting or you're trying to reap something from the natural world. And so you tug on this one thread and then you start to see how that thread is woven throughout the whole tapestry of the natural world.
And I think too, there are people that I know that are hunters or gatherers, and they're so focused on that specific thing that that's like their whole thing. Mm-hmm. They don't actually
to the exclusion of other.
Yeah, I think that is one of the big dangers. So it's a B tier, and I actually think it's a little bit lower than the indoor naturalizing or armchair naturalizing. Let's go with map and compass skills.
Oh, okay.
Where does this go? I mean, it's kind of a niche one.
Yeah.
Only because, I mean, it's just one thing, but it is a thing
it's
that
very specific. But is this, and I think this is like, know where you are. It's kind of like knowing where, it's beyond just map and compass.
Yeah.
It's like,
okay. Yeah, we could say that.
It's like a sense of place and like understanding of place. I feel like context is so important. Just like you don't start a book in the middle. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe some people do. But if you start in the middle, you're missing, part of the context. And so you might not understand things in the same way that you would if you had the bigger picture. So I feel like it's very important. I don't know how much time I would spend on honing that skill though.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm gonna put it in C tier, and listen, there's no bad habit in here. This is just, what we think maybe you should prioritize overall. But map and compass skills are definitely a very specialized skill of naturalists, but one that I think, for someone who's lacking it, you can really notice that they don't know how to navigate, they don't know how to read a map. That's important.
So in other words, it's on this list, or it will end up on this list because it's important. Full stop.
Yeah.
Right. So even if it's in D tier, it's still on the list because it's still important.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a C tier. All right. So this one is one maybe some folks have never really heard of or thought of. It's called animal forms. So in some naturalist circles, this is like a big thing. And actually for kids, for young naturalists, it can be really important. So it's just simply pretending to be an animal or moving like an animal. Even some forms of yoga could definitely be considered an animal form if you're really spending time embodying animals. Maybe that sounds a little goofy to you, but there is value in that, no doubt. There's value in using your own muscles and your own body to move like animals.
Yeah, I think a great, maybe like a tangible example for folks if you're unfamiliar with this is like, let's say you're out trailing an animal. If you are trailing an animal that is a quadruped and you're on 2 feet, and you're upright and you're 6 feet tall, and this animal, maybe let's just say it's a fox. It's small. It's maybe, a foot and a half off the ground, at its height. You're going to miss things if you don't get down to the fox's level, right? And so just by getting down to where the fox, you can see things like, a tunnel through the brush that you might have missed, from 5.5 feet up, right? So I think that's one of the ways that I see that.
Definitely.
Play out.
It has value. If you haven't incorporated it into your naturals practice, do so.
Yeah.
That being said,
I put it on C.
C tier.
Yeah.
C tier, agreed. Alright, so here we go. This one's survival skills. Okay, so we got a little arrowhead here.
I think survival skills was represented by the fire. I think this is
traditional skills.
Traditional skills, right?
Yeah, so apologize for that. So this is like making baskets, making stone tools.
Mm-hmm. Experimental archaeology.
Yeah, it's making fire
in primitive ways.
Just primitive skills in general, and building shelters, like more long-term shelters.
It has a lot. I feel like it has a lot of similar threads to like the hunting gathering.
Yeah.
For me, like it can serve as that need, that initial sort of spark that then draws you into a whole array of different disciplines. So I think I would put it alongside there in the B tier. Yeah, alongside hunting and gathering for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. It's a keystone habit in the sense that let's say you're going to go make a grass basket. So like you collect grass, you got to make sure it's at the right time. Right. You got to have the right materials, be in the right place.
You start to learn so many things. It's like you accidentally learn things.
Exactly.
By trying to do that.
So, yeah.
And I think, and I will say about both hunting and gathering and the traditional skills, I think there's something about the human relationship with the natural world that it is really important as a naturalist. Like we should guard ourselves against thinking of ourselves as naturalists as like computers where we're just aggregating information, we're just taking things in and like interpreting and understanding. Like there's a human element to being a naturalist, and I think that this is where that really plays out.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, what you just said kind of makes me want to bump it up, but I do think the barrier to entry thing is real. So that's a part of our factor reasoning is how hard is it to get into this stuff?
Yeah. And you have to spend a lot of time on some of these skills.
Oh yeah, a long time.
So as far as, input and output. Yeah.
This one's, you could say it's art, but I was thinking of it as sketching or just general, like, taking your observations and turning them into, like, something on a piece of paper or some kind of way of, using your observations and translating through your body, through your hand, through a movement, color, shade, texture, all those things that sometimes, like, if we don't practice any art or do any kind of that kind of perspective stuff, man, we're losing out on a whole lot of stuff that is so rich.
Yeah, I really, as you know, and I think you share my admiration for Andy Goldsworthy, and that's what I think of with this one, and it's like that's really a deeply nature connected person, and I think that his understanding of his materials is so deep, in ways that you wouldn't just learn in a scientific way. But that you can only achieve, that level of understanding or those sorts of understandings about, the natural world that through the creative process.
I agree. And I think too, the barrier to entry is really low. And I think it's A tier for that reason.
Yeah. It's sort of like a non-utilitarian version of the ancestral skills stuff, maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you're going to be learning so much, and it's just a whole different perspective on all kinds of stuff that you're going to gain by incorporating that practice. All right, so let's skip over here. So social media stuff.
Oh boy.
I think this is an important habit. I mean, we all, like a lot of people, modern naturalists, we're on Facebook. We have Facebook groups that we follow. We follow Instagram accounts, and these things are really interesting.
And you can learn a lot through that, right?
Totally.
You're connected to so many people, so many naturalists potentially.
But pitfalls are big. This one. Anyone who's listening knows that. Man, social media can be a huge energy sink trap. It can make us feel like other people are doing cool stuff and we're not. I mean, there's a lot there that's negative, I think, and we just need to be mindful of that. And that's why I think this goes in the D tier. And not because it has no value, but just because all these other ones have more value.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So
yeah, there's an illusion too of greater depth of understanding through watching, a video or through seeing someone's post that I think makes you feel like you have more understanding than maybe you really do by, if you don't have any dirt time and you're learning everything through social media. I think there's it's some of the same pitfalls as the Armchair Naturalist, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like a worse version of it in some ways, like the modern version of the Armchair Naturalist, the social media naturalist. Not that you shouldn't do it. All right, so wandering. This is one that, it's about sort of the aimless naturalist, who wanders the landscape and finds things they never would have thought they would have found.
Yeah, I think I thought about this a lot not too long ago. I was out on a walk and I did some wandering, and the unplanned nature of it and the unknown aspect of it, it really sets off your imagination. And I think that learning, if you try to learn without ever using your imagination, you're sort of creating a box around what can be known. And I think if you are learning well using your imagination, you're knocking the box apart, and it becomes boundless. What you could potentially learn becomes sort of boundless. And I feel like that's one of the key things about wandering is there could be anything out there. You don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's just something where if you have a safe place to wander around and just explore and an open woods, even actually, you can even do this in a really small area, really honestly. If you get really micro about it, like one stream could be a whole day of wandering. One little patch of woodland could be a whole day. And just having a purposelessness to it. is so important.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that maybe is kind of counter a little bit. It's almost like it's counter to the map and compass navigation sort of like know where you are thing, but at the same time, by wandering, you do learn where you are. You reduce the unknown in some ways by making it the known, but then you kind of expand your horizons at the same time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Wandering has been one of my favorite things to do as a naturalist. And that's why I think I'm going to put it a high B tier.
Oh, okay. So left
what do you think?
Left is higher. Yeah, I can't see it as C tier. It's definitely a cut. It's definitely a cut above animal forms and navigation.
Yeah. But if you know nothing, it's not going to get you very far. So it's kind of, you got to have some level of knowledge to start wandering around and get involved. So could be A tier, B tier, somewhere in there, I think.
Okay. Well.
All right, survival skills.
That's what
this one is. So this is another one, I think, similar to hunting and gathering and traditional skills. It's a little different, though, because for those who haven't experienced this or tested this, maybe you've watched Bear Grylls or Alone, some of these survival shows. But what if you did that for yourself, and what if you thought about it as a naturalist from that perspective? What would you learn about, animals, how animals survive, how life works, how seasons change, lacks and larders, all these different things.
Yeah, it gives you an opportunity for some deep insight that you can't really get unless you experience it.
Yeah, but barrier entry is higher than maybe anything else on this list, maybe besides hunting.
And especially time input. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be a low B.
Yeah, it could fit in below some of these other ones. I think that's where I feel comfortable with it.
Or a high C, I don't know.
Again, it's one of it could be a keystone habit where that's what motivates you to do everything else on the whole list, and that's your jam. But I just think,
but that's
overall,
that's sort of like on an individual basis.
Right. So let's put that on B tier.
B for a general audience.
Lots of B tier here.
Yeah.
All right, so sit spot. It's going up to S tier for me. It's the keystone habit.
Yeah.
It's the lowest barrier to entry and the highest cost potentially result. Right. If you spend time 10 years, if you went to one spot in nature for 10 years, every day for 10 years, what would you learn? What would you get if you did 5 minutes a day in one spot for 10 years straight versus 5 minutes a day of any of these other ones? Man, you would learn so much.
Yeah. So high value. It's good for your brain. I mean,
yeah.
Naturalist, natural history disciplines aside, it's really healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we don't need to talk too much about sit spot. Just go to it.
I think I can agree. S tier. I mean,
even if it's just your porch.
Sit spot tier.
Sit spot tier. Nice. All right, so this one's outdoor rec. So we're talking about hiking, be doing rock climbing, sea kayaking, I don't know, you name it. There's all kinds of things that we do outside that really, I put it on here because I think these are things that naturalists do, that we do naturalize while we do these things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't think it's very high because we're not focused on natural stuff.
Yeah, I think it's more of a opportunistic maybe approach to discovery, and I think what I often see, and I don't want to I want to maybe dispel any value judgment that comes through on this one, but I do often see folks with earphones in, or they've got they're not even, just a speaker blasting, they're hiking along the trail and they're blasting music. It's just it seems so dissonant to me. So there's a real danger where you can, and even if you're not, if you don't do that, but you just have the blinders on, right? You're on the trail, and versus wandering, right? Where maybe you're not on the trail. And when you're off the trail, you're paying attention to everything around you. You're navigating, you're looking where you're going, you notice the shape of the land. When you're on the trail, I notice this myself. I pay much less attention to the shape of the land, and I don't know what's going on to the same degree. My vision is narrowed, my senses are narrowed. So I think there's definitely some pitfalls.
Yeah, I think that's clear.
It's like when you go out to try to go for a walk, and you catch yourself not getting anywhere because you're stopping to pay attention to what's around you. And it's like, they don't always dovetail very well.
Yeah. And I think we can trick ourselves into thinking that we're really naturalizing when we're not, when we're out hiking and stuff. And we were getting good exercise, getting fresh air, all great things, but we weren't really learning. So I'm putting it on D tier. And not to say it's bad.
And this is in the context of natural history and being a better naturalist. Those are great things to do, outside of that context, and might be an S tier on a different, in a different context. So.
Yeah. All right. Listing. This is a big one. We're going to talk about journaling in a second here. Listing is a subset of journaling.
Right.
But I think it's worth being its own category because, life listing, sometimes we master lists like mammal species when we're tracking.
Yeah.
Or before we go out tracking. It's really a niche thing, but I think some people, some naturalists, maybe especially birders, really focus on it, and it can be, I think, a little bit of a pitfall in terms of how much time we spend listing.
Yeah. How much do you emphasize the list? So it's like with a lot of things, it's a matter of balance.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in listing and keeping lists, and
exactly.
It's kind of a way of expanding, what you can't just keep everything in your mind. It's like an external way of, keeping track of things and remembering things, or, remembering what you wanted to look up, or, there's so many good uses for making lists. So I think, you have it in C tier there, Matt. I think that seems reasonable.
Yeah. Incorporate it into your practice, but don't prioritize it. All right. Journaling. This one's a big, covers there's obviously all kinds of different kinds of journaling.
Yeah, and we've talked about on the podcast about, how we interpret journaling, and that can be everything from literally a pen and paper journal to sharing your story in other ways. Like maybe you take photographs, maybe you paint a picture. I think there's lots of different ways of sort of, it's a way of like processing externally, not just in your head, but processing, what you learn, what you observe. So.
Oh yeah, like the difference to, like, let's say you went to a lecture and then you didn't take notes and you didn't journal, as it were, and then someone asked you a week later about the lecture, you wouldn't really know very much, but if you did take the time to 10 minutes after to like reflect on it, how much more would you know? It's like that. So when you come home from your outing or whatever, or even some indoor stuff where you're taking notes, man, that has the power to really hold on to in your brain for a long time.
It etches it deeper, right? There's a lot of good science behind that just recalling an experience etches it more deeply in your memory.
Yeah.
And so if you want to remember all the great stuff that you're seeing and hearing and learning about out in nature.
So where do you put it?
Journal it. I think it's a B.
Really? I think A, and I actually would even think about S tier, and I think if it is A, it's high. Because I think if you incorporate this skill, even if it's 1 minute a day, of what are the 3 things that I learned as a naturalist today? I wish I had done that a long time ago. So I think high A. Maybe a sit spot is going to be the lone S tier spot, but
maybe we'll see. Maybe we can do some shuffling around if when we look at the general picture and see if anything feels wrong. Moving on.
Yeah, so the magnifying glass is focused outdoor study. So it's sort of the other side of the coin from the Armchair Naturalist.
This is your dirt time, folks.
This is what incorporates a huge amount of natural history. It's birding, herping, geologizing. It's when you go out and you're like, all right, I got the bins. It's time to go birding.
Yeah. Like when you actually think you're doing natural history.
Yeah.
I'm currently doing natural history.
Yeah. It's when you're it's focused tracking or something like that. Mm-hmm. I'm out tracking right now. And it's opposed to wandering where it's like, I don't really have an agenda. So this is like the focus side. It's obviously a huge part of what we do.
I think it's A tier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. And I think it's probably right up here. It might be past journal. It might be past journaling.
Yeah. It is for me. Maybe this is where we get into the subjective zone.
Yeah. No, what are you doing if you're not doing? I have to say.
Yeah.
If you're not spending time like picking botany, I'm going to learn all my trees. And you're focused on that. And you go outside and you go into the woods and you go to each tree and you really focus on with the field guide. and you're doing it. When you start incorporating other things with that, going out with other people, drawing afterwards, journaling afterwards, it's
collecting
amazing
things while you're out there, bringing them home, studying them at home.
Yeah, so we're really obviously none of these are in a vacuum, but to go out and focus on something in the natural world like that is so important.
Yeah, that almost feels like if this, I may be kind of picturing in my mind now like sort of like a web. This is like at the nexus of a lot of these other things. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Without this is kind of the center of that nexus.
And so that's why it is S tier. Actually, I think you're right. Because it just is. If you're doing these two things, man, you're basically doing everything else in some way. So S tier for focused naturalist study. Outside. Mm-hmm. Outside. That's outside. All right, last one, collecting. So this is, a lot of us have like skull collections. You could have butterfly collection. You could have like a bark rubbing collection. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of different things, and a lot of people, this is a big part of their naturalist study.
Yeah, I think this is going to have probably a broad sort of spectrum of importance, from person to person. I think for some people, this is going to have huge value, and I think for other people, it may have less value.
I agree, and I think barrier to entry is high. I mean, you got to have a place to store whatever it is.
It's almost like collecting. I'm thinking of insects, like a beetle collection. If you're going to collect beetles, you kind of have to get the equipment. You got to have you have the right tools. You have to have the right setup in order to do it. So yeah, the barrier to entry thing is definitely a factor.
Yeah, but a great practice, especially once you're more established in your practice.
You notice so many things too. If you have an insect in the hand versus just seeing it in the field, yeah, there's a lot of like subtle detail that you can pick up on by getting up close and personal with your collection.
For sure. So I'm putting it high C tier.
Yeah,
it's definitely, for me, it's below survival, traditional skills in hunting and gathering, but above map and compass and animal form. So anyway, that's our tier list. I mean, anything you would change, Stefan?
Well, I've been brewing on the journaling thing. Natural history. This is something that I think maybe some folks might be a little bit fuzzy on. Like, why is it called natural history? What's that all about? And I think that the original, like the root of history, like natural history, the term natural history comes from a time when history just meant like to describe. So it's like describing nature is basically what natural. That's what the field of natural history is. And what are you doing when you're journaling? You're describing, what you observe, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's like kind of the essence of.
Oh, are you feeling
of natural history? I mean, we're talking about natural history here, right?
I think it's
we're not just talking about learning about nature. We're talking about natural history, which is the description of nature.
Yeah.
The practice of describing nature. So.
Yeah, and someone may read that down the line. Who knows? But I think S tier too. I feel good about this. And maybe some of these things surprise you as a listener. Maybe some things feel differently about. But let us know what you think. And I hope that was helpful for you, at least in thinking about this stuff differently, or maybe something you want to incorporate now after this, or devalue maybe a little bit. I don't know. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And,
I hope you enjoyed it. It was good to kind of get back into making something for you guys.